I asked
consistent
you a
with the
very
agreement.
specific question. Who gave you $100 million right before you were sworn in? Was it a billionaire who has business with the Fed? Was it Stanley Druckenmiller, who's made billions of dollars betting on what the Fed does? Or was it a different billionaire? Who gave you the money?
I will fully comply with the Office of Government Ethics.
That's not an answer.
Well, it is an answer, actually, Senator,
No,
because there
it's
are
not.
obligations,
It's
and I will satisfy them
$100 million
completely.
that you got just before you were sworn in, and you won't tell the American people where it came from. You just said you're the guy in charge. Did you ask her about the secret meeting that took place? Did you ask her?
I can answer a simple question, which is I wasn't at the meeting. I don't
understand
know the
that.
facts.
No one
but I'd
thinks
be
you were.
very
Did
interested
you
in the
ask
fact
about
finding
the
being
facts?
done by an independent inspector
Did you care
general.
enough to ask, how can you be chair and not ask your own vice chair whether or not she violated the blackout period, violated the law?
Ranking member, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome back, Mr. Warsh. So about 2 months ago, you appeared in front of this committee for your nomination hearing, and you refused to answer basic factual questions. I assume because you were afraid of contradicting President Trump. Your answers during the hearing were so troubling that this committee had a party line vote for Fed chair for the first time ever in our history. You were confirmed by the Senate in the tightest vote for a Fed chair in U.S. history. So you now face an uphill battle to show that you have the independence needed to run America's central bank and to serve American families and not just President Trump and his billionaire friends. Now, President Trump's corruption and failed economic agenda is raising costs across the board. Inflation has kept real wages from growing for the third consecutive month. That means in the Trump economy, families are falling behind with less to spend every day that goes by. High interest rates are making mortgages, auto loans, and credit cards more expensive. More and more people are falling behind on their bills. 95% of Americans believe that the U.S. is suffering an affordability crisis, while President Trump continues to call affordability a hoax, telling Americans their concerns about the cost of living are made up. Lower interest rates would provide some relief to families, but the Fed hasn't lowered interest rates and may be forced to raise rates even more, all because of one man, President Trump. Now, the president knows this, so instead of changing course, he wants to take over the Fed. Installing you as Fed chair was a critical part of his plan. You reportedly told the president exactly what he wanted to hear in your Oval Office interview, and Trump confirmed it afterwards, saying, quote, Warsh thinks you have to lower interest rates. Now, for your part, you were the only member of the last Fed meeting who declined to submit economic projections that are supposed to show how the Fed's decisions under your leadership are likely to affect American consumers and American workers. People might look at that and conclude that you don't want to tell the truth about inflation under Trump. Trump may have you in his pocket, but he will not stop until he controls the Fed. And he just needs one more seat to do that. And that's why he has had his Department of Justice open bogus criminal investigations into both Governor Lisa Cook and former chair Jerome Powell. And that is why he illegally tried to fire Fed Governor Cook. His own Supreme Court recently blocked the firing, at least for now, but Trump has vowed to try again to fire Governor Cook. The fight for control is a fight over interest rates, but it is also about corruption. President Trump likes to play king, and the Fed offers many appealing opportunities for the president to enrich himself while he fleeces the American people. Start with crypto. Trump's family crypto company is World Liberty Financial, the centerpiece of the crypto enterprise that let him rake in $1.4 billion in 2025 alone. Now it is currently applying for a bank charter. After that charter is granted by Trump's own bank regulator, World Liberty could seek special privileges from the Federal Reserve to juice its own profits, like a master account that would give Trump's own company direct access to the Fed's core payment rails. And there's more. If he can control the Fed, Trump could threaten to revoke banks' access to Fed services if they refuse to do his bidding. He could hijack the Fed's extraordinary powers to bail out financial markets, making sure that he rewards his friends and punishes his enemies in a crisis. And you better bet that Trump will turbocharge the Wall Street deregulation that is already underway, juicing megabank profits and CEO bonuses, knowing that American taxpayers will be on the hook once again if there's another devastating financial crash. Congress and the American people will be watching closely whether you serve the public or whether you become yet another instrument of Donald Trump's corruption. So the Federal Reserve has long been plagued by a culture of corruption and coziness with Wall Street. Over the last 5 years, at least 6 senior Fed officials have been implicated in serious ethics scandals related to personal stock trading and self-dealing. But instead of trying to repair this broken culture, I'm concerned that you seem to be embracing it. At the time of your nomination, you owned more than $100 million worth of shares in private investment vehicles called the Juggernaut Funds and THSDFS LLC. And you refused to disclose the underlying assets to the Senate and to the public. You say now that you've sold those shares. In other words, somebody wrote you a check for more than $100 million days before you entered office. Chair Walsh, who wrote that check?
Senator Warren, this is a discussion you and I had in the public square 7 weeks ago, and I'm thrilled to tell you that I have fully honored the obligations I had under the agreement I had with the Office of Government Ethics.
Yeah, I'm
there is
glad you
continued
did,
disclosure,
but
which I'm happy to make as consistent with the
I asked you a
agreement.
very specific question. Who gave you $100 million right before you were sworn in? Was it a billionaire who has business with the Fed? Was it Stanley Druckenmiller, who's made billions of dollars betting on what the Fed does? Or was it a different billionaire? Who gave you the money?
I will fully comply with the Office of Government Ethics.
That's not an answer.
Well, it is an answer, actually, Senator, because there
it's
are
not.
obligations,
It's
and I will
$100
satisfy them
million
completely.
that you got just before you were sworn in, and you won't tell the American people where it came from. Let's go to another incident. As you know, the Fed imposes a blackout period where senior Fed officials are prohibited from talking about economic issues with outsiders. The idea is to, quote, reinforce the public's confidence in the transparency and integrity of the monetary policy process. In other words, no one gets some special insider information from the Fed. But shortly after your first FOMC meeting as chair, right in the middle of the blackout period, the Fed's vice chair for supervision, Michelle Bowman, was reportedly the featured guest at a secret dinner hosted by Bank of America for its hedge fund and Wall Street clients. At this closed-door dinner, she reportedly spoke about both monetary policy topics and regulatory policy. Now, I've called on the Inspector General to review her conduct, but you're the guy in charge. As chair, you set the tone on culture. Did Vice Chair Bowman provide any non-public information to the attendees at that secret dinner or discuss any regulatory policy matters that are subject to open comment periods?
Senator, I agree with one of the premises of your question, which is I do set the culture.
Good.
After my very first week at the Fed, I sent a letter to the 21,000 people at the Fed outlining our culture.
I appreciate that, but we have very limited time and a very strict chairman. So can you just answer the question about the vice chair and her secret meeting?
Sure, I'm happy to the extent I can share it with you. I The vice chair has been an excellent colleague in my first 7 weeks. I'm aware of the letter you sent to the inspector general. Out of an enormous respect for him, his investigation, what he chooses to do with it, I'm going to leave to him to do without trying to micromanage that.
So you
and I'd be
support-
interested in the judgments that he comes to.
So you will support his investigation. Have you made your own investigation? Did you ask her if she spoke at a secret meeting during the blackout period?
I agree with the suggestion that the inspector general is an independent actor, and I'd be
know.
very
You're the
interested
guy
in his
charge.
decision.
You just said you're the guy in charge. Did you ask her about the secret meeting that took place? Did you ask her?
I can answer a simple question, which is I wasn't at the meeting. I don't know
understand
the
that.
facts.
No one
but I'd
thinks
be
you were.
very
Did
interested
you
in the
ask
fact
about
finding
the
being
facts?
done by an independent inspector
Did you care
general.
enough to ask, how can you be chair and not ask your own vice chair whether or not she violated the blackout period, violated the law?
I think it'd be inappropriate for me to prejudge facts that are being discovered
I
by
don't
an
know how you
independent actor.
prejudge them if you don't ask.
Well, I don't know how to prejudge them if I wasn't in the
So just
attendance
tell
of a
me,
meeting.
did you ask?
She's been an excellent colleague.
Did you
We've-
ask?
I've asked her a lot of things
Did you
about
ask?
supervision and regulation
Yeah,
because we've
I
been
think
busy
that's one
doing
more
a lot of
question
real
you
work
don't
over
wanna
the last
answer.
7
I
weeks.
gotta say, I'm gonna take the same time you did. I just gotta say,
You hope so.
the tone that you are setting is one that seems to invite corruption, and that's going to be a real problem.
Mr.
Thank you.
Brown.
We've had 7 weeks, Senator Warren, and we've set a tone of performance, accountability, responsibility, and integrity.